There is a kind of hunger that feels like worship. You wait for the next word, a preacher's whisper, a stranger's text, a dream you can't shake, because it lights something up that quiet reading of your own Bible stopped lighting months ago. Nobody warned you this could happen. Nobody warned you that the very gift meant to point you back to God's voice could become the reason you stop listening for it. Here is the picture, and once you see it, you will not unsee it. A firework is loud, sudden, and gorgeous. It rips open the sky, and for 3 seconds the whole crowd gasps as one. Then it is gone. Smoke, silence. And the crowd, still buzzing from that hit of light, turns its face upward again, waiting for the next explosion because the dark in between feels unbearable now. The sun does not work that way. It never explodes. It never asks to be noticed. It simply rises every single morning on the righteous and the unrighteous, and it feeds every living thing on the ground without applause. Nobody gasps at sunrise, but nothing grows under fireworks. Somewhere along the way, many believers started living for the fireworks. A fresh prophetic word feels like a burst of color in a gray week, instant, personal, electric. And there is nothing wrong with light in the sky. But a soul that only eats fireworks develops a strange kind of malnutrition. It looks fed. It is starving. Think about what actually happens in you when someone says, "I have a word for you." Your pulse changes. Your attention narrows. You lean forward the way you never leaned forward over your own open Bible. That is not a small thing. That is your spirit training itself to associate God's voice with novelty, with someone else's mouth, with the next spark, instead of with the steady page that has been sitting on your nightstand collecting dust. This is the quiet danger nobody preaches on stage, because it does not look like sin. It looks like hunger for God. It looks like faith. A person chasing prophecy after prophecy can genuinely believe they are drawing closer to the Lord, while the actual habit forming underneath is closer to an appetite than a relationship. Each new word has to be a little more specific, a little more urgent, a little more thrilling than the last one to produce the same feeling, because that is what fireworks always require. More powder, bigger bang, and every round leaves behind smoke that stings the eyes and makes the next dark stretch feel even darker. There's a reason this particular hunger is so easy to miss in yourself. It doesn't announce itself as rebellion. It dresses up as zeal. You can be the most eager person in the room, first to show up, last to leave, hands raised the longest and still be quietly starving, because eagerness for an experience is not the same thing as appetite for the written word. Two people can sit in the exact same service. One walks out fed because they came already full of scripture, testing everything they heard against it in real time. The other walks out high, buzzing, unable to say what was actually said, only that it felt like fire. Give it a week and watch which one is still standing when the feeling fades. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable, because Scripture already saw this coming. Long before anyone had a word for spiritual addiction, Peter wrote that believers have the prophetic word made more sure, and told them to pay attention to it as a light shining in a dark place, not the flash overhead, but the lamp in the hand, the thing you can actually walk by. Paul told a young pastor to test everything and hold on only to what is good. Testing requires a fixed standard. You cannot test a firework against another firework. You need something that does not move. Scripture is the thing that does not move. And this is the part that should genuinely unsettle you, because it is not hypothetical. When your only reference point for God's voice is the last exciting thing someone told you, you lose the ability to catch a counterfeit. A counterfeit prophetic word doesn't look fake in the moment. It looks like a bigger firework. Brighter, louder, more specific about your name, your marriage, your bank account. People who have quietly stopped feeding on the written word are, without realizing it, the easiest room in the building to fool, because they've lost their taste for anything that doesn't sparkle. Deception rarely announces itself. It usually arrives wearing the exact costume you were already trained to crave. And notice what this does to a whole community, not just one person. A church full of firework chasers starts ranking its leaders by how electric they feel on a platform, not by how faithfully they handle the text. The quiet teacher who opens a passage line by line gets called dry. The loud one who claims a fresh download every week gets called anointed. Nobody voted on that shift. It happened one applause at a time, one dopamine hit at a time, until the whole room's taste buds were retrained without anyone noticing the meal had changed. Sit with that for a second, because most people never do. The very hunger that feels like devotion can be the crack in the wall the wrong voice slips through. This isn't about whether God still speaks, He does, and Scripture never tells us to despise a genuine word. The danger isn't in receiving. The danger is in what happens to a heart that has quietly rearranged its worship, that now needs the flash to feel close to God at all. Here's the reversal almost nobody expects. The sun is not boring because it lacks power. The sun is a nuclear furnace, 93 million miles away, converting hydrogen into helium at a rate that would vaporize a firework factory in a heartbeat. It only feels boring because it is faithful. It shows up every day whether or not you clap for it. That is exactly what the written word is, not a dim, dutiful backup plan for people who can't get a real word, but the actual furnace. The place where the power was always coming from. Every legitimate prophetic word that has ever been spoken only had light because it was catching a beam from that same sun. Nothing genuinely from God will ever contradict what He has already permanently said. If it does, it isn't light. It's a flare someone else lit. So the real test is not, did this word feel powerful? Fireworks always feel powerful. That is the entire design. The real test is, does it match what has already been written? Does it survive daylight? Because a firework only looks impressive against a dark sky. Hold it up next to the sun and you can't even see it burning. There is a kind of person Scripture describes almost gently, almost sadly, one who is always learning, always searching, and never able to arrive at the knowledge of the truth. Not because they weren't sincere, because they kept feeding on sparks and calling it sustenance. You can attend every gathering, chase every word, collect every prophecy spoken over your life since you were 19 years old, and still be, in the part of you that actually has to carry weight, undernourished. Bones don't grow on light shows. They grow on bread, eaten daily, chewed slowly, the unglamorous way. This is where the shift has to happen, and it is smaller than you think. It isn't stop believing God speaks. It's stop needing Him to speak in fireworks before you'll listen. Open the page that isn't performing for you tonight. Let it be unglamorous. Let it be Tuesday, ordinary light, no crowd gasping, nothing trending about it. That steady exposure is what actually builds the kind of discernment that can catch a counterfeit before it detonates in your life. Because you'll finally have a fixed point of reference instead of just the memory of the last flash. And here is the picture worth carrying out of this. Nobody has ever grown a field by standing in it during fireworks. Every harvest anyone has ever eaten from grew under the sun nobody thanked for showing up. The written word is not competing with the gift of prophecy. It is the soil the gift is supposed to grow out of. Cut a flower from its root, and it is beautiful for a day. Then it curls and browns on the counter. Roots that stay in the ground outlast every bouquet. So before you wait for the next word, ask what's actually growing in the soil you already have. Because the hunger you feel isn't wrong. It's aimed at the wrong sky. And once you turn your face back toward the light that never stops rising, you may find that you were never starving for a new word at all. You were starving for the old one, spoken directly to you, one steady page at a time, and it had been sitting there the entire time, waiting for you to stop watching the sky and start opening the book. That shift, small and unspectacular as it looks from the outside, is the difference between a faith that flickers with every new voice and a faith that stands in daylight no matter what the sky does next.